Well, welcome to the last Wednesday of the month, and that means it is Members Connect. Today's going to be spooky stories. That is our theme. So I'm sure in real estate, whether it's shopping for real estate or having tenants who are spooky or selling or buying, whatever the case may be, I'm sure you guys have all sorts of spooky stories. I am Elisa and I'm located in Toronto. I have been here for 9 years, and before that I was in Vancouver. I have been a member of WREN, I don't know, maybe 8 years, seven, something like that. And I am the chair. Oh, nice. I am the chair of the co-housing, co-living, and co-ownership committee. And I'm looking for anyone else who would like to join our committee. That's me in a nutshell.
So I'm Lynn, and I am in Sudbury, so Northern Ontario. Was in the GTA forever, and I've been part of WREN for, I think it must be 4 going on 5 years now. And I work with Raintree Financial Solutions, so I do exempt market products and public market now through portfolio managers. I have a couple partners in Victoria and Vancouver. And yeah, before the call started, we were talking a little bit about horror stories. And at first I said I didn't have any, and now I've started to think of many. So condos and this and everything else. So that can wait. Anyway, that's me.
I am Angie. Right now I'm house sitting for Alexis, who is our sponsor realtor, and then also has joined up with Liza and is doing a lot of work now with us, but I think everybody here probably knows that.
How long have you been a WREN member?
Oh yeah, okay. So I think I probably joined about like a year and a half ago. I don't know if that's longer, but I think at least a good year. It feels like it's been longer. And I guess, what about me? I mean, I feel like everybody here might know me a little bit, but yeah, I work for Air Canada as a service director, so that's a lead flight attendant. And then I have like little small things. So it was actually Alexis and then Colleen who helped me to buy what I call the Peanut, a little micro condo in Surrey, right in that area where, oh, help me out. What's the guy's name who used to, Sethi?
Ozzy?
Like the Flamingo? No, not Ozzy. Ozzy had him speak a few times about like the Flamingo and other projects, going back a couple of years when they were selling all their pre-sales. But anyways, I'm just like right in the middle of that like city central area, which is, I don't know, I think that's cool. And then I think I could, yeah, I have that story in Calgary because I have a house out there and it had some bad tenants. So that would be my not so spooky, but definitely horror story. There we go. How about that?
And Angie, it's been at least 2 years.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because we were looking up some member record things the other day. It's been at least 2 years. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, crazy, hey?
Yeah.
Time flies. Yeah. Time flies.
Hi, everyone. I am Jen. I'm in downtown Vancouver. I have a ton of tenant horror stories, and my upcoming horror story will be filing U.S. taxes for the last 4 years. Shame. But I did sell a condo, maybe 2 within that time frame. So I'm going to have to hopefully, come out dead even so that I don't have to pay the U.S. government any money. But U.S. election is going to be very scary. I'm already worried because there's already some Supreme Court justices overruling voting situations, and it's terrifying. So if Trump gets in, I'm not moving down because I do want my rights, and I think that a lot of women will lose their rights if he gets into power. Not such a fan of autocracies. Anywho, yeah, so I'm half American, half Canadian. My current The current project is finishing an urban land economics diploma. I finish in 35 days at 12:31 p.m. So I am basically sprint to the finish, studying like a beast. I'm doing the mortgage broker's course right now. It's Finance 221, but it's essentially the mortgage broker's course, which gives me the ability to be a mortgage broker as well as a million other things once I'm done that diploma. And yeah, I am still selling beer and doing all that on my full-time day job. So living the dream.
You are busy.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, and once you've done your urban course, we should get you to deliver a summary to the group.
Sure.
Yeah.
There's 11 different courses in it, which gives me 5 different accreditations. So we can talk about what you guys want to learn about.
Amazing. Yeah, I think that'll be great. I think people will love to learn about that because there's going to be, I think there's going to be some developing coming back online next year after we get through spring and some more rate drops. So that's awesome. Cool.
I am studying development right now as we speak, actually, and land leases. Yay, math.
Awesome.
Nice. Thank you, Jen. Hong, you want to go next?
Who's Hong? She's not here. Okay. All right. So I was trying to think up of a new name, but I couldn't think of anything. So hi, I'm Hong. So I've been with the group 2 months now, maybe a full month. So I've been in real estate 25 years, closing on another 8, well, the empty land today, and it will be an 8-plex in 18 months. And yeah, what else can I tell you guys? What else do you guys want to know? We're doing the cash crunch next week.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cash flow crunch coming up.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
Hong has been great. She joined the group like super fast and just has so much experience, and so has jumped in as one of our new community leaders to help Alexis out. So it's been terrific. So yay!
And Hong, you're based in Vancouver, right?
Well, yes, I'm based in Vancouver. I'm from Toronto, and I've pretty much lived all across Canada except for the East Coast. So I've brought a bit of a portfolio in all the different provinces.
So I'm Liza Rogers. I'm the founder of WREN, the Women's Real Estate Network. Today I am the real estate fairy. I am granting your real estate wishes. I'm actually in the spooky basement of my dear friends Colin and Michelle, and I am literally in what is nicknamed the spooky room. So I went and dove into the Halloween treasure trove and pulled out some spider webs and the pumpkin, and there's a witch behind me, and then yeah, outside it's rainy and scary, and yeah, so I opened up the tickle trunk, and this wig was literally what was sitting on top. I'm like, that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to be the funky real estate fairy. So that's me today. Yeah, and just nice to get the consistency going again with getting online and getting everybody checking in, and we've got lots of new people, and there's some people who've been around for a while who've said they're going to start chiming in. So I think we've been talking a lot about, it feels like the heavy energy of things like all the election stuff, and yeah, I think once the US election is over, and I think once we get into the new year, I think people are going to start to say like, okay, look, yes, the world is not perfect, but we have to just move on, right? Like whatever the situation is, we got to keep going, and we have to keep, being the light that the world always needs. So I think, we just keep our optimism and keep going and keep moving forward. And yeah, I think next year is going to be really exciting. I can't wait. And of course, I'm going to Mexico at the end of the month. So the next time we do this, we'll be doing it for Mexico. So I might not even make it, because I think I might even be flying that day. So Elisa and Alexis will be or Elisa and Lynn will be hosting with me, maybe being on a plane. We'll see. So there we go. So yeah, we've been talking about our spooky stories, and we just thought it might be kind of fun to share. So I know all of us have a few either spooky stories or horror stories. So we thought it might be fun to share a couple of stories and maybe some of the lessons that were learned. So yeah, Elisa, do you want to walk anybody through the the next phase of our little Members Connect meeting?
Yeah, I think just like what Liza said, it's important for us to or it's fun for us to share some sort of spooky or horrific story about real estate or about tenants or about what you've seen or experienced. But then it's also important for us to chime in with, what did we learn from that experience? And also, I want to open it up to the floor that if anyone else has any suggestions as to how we might be able to avoid that spooky story happening again, that would be fantastic. So I know everyone's got a different perspective, whether it's from a different province or a different asset class or even different country, right? Let's get started. I know one of the stories that I was talking to Liza about was when Robin Farrell first moved to Kitchener. Does everyone know Robin Farrell from Victoria?
Probably not. So Robin's a radio DJ personality in Victoria, and she got a really great opportunity to move to Toronto. She was a WREN member. And if you've seen the WREN highlight reel that opens up right at YouTube, Robin is in there and she's saying, we looked at the house and we got it. And she's just like full of energy and it's a great little clip. And so you'll see Robin in the highlight reel. So go ahead, Elisa.
Yeah, so that was a couple of years ago. And so I thought, okay, because I had never met Robin. So I thought, okay, I'm going to go up to Kitchener from Toronto and I'll meet up with her and we can go look at some property. We were looking at student housing because we wanted to change it, convert it to co-living properties. And so I thought, how hard can it be? Because Kitchener, Waterloo, it's like a university town. So Robin meets us there in her souped up, what she got, Camaro?
She's got a Charger, a Dodge Charger.
Yeah. So she rolls up, with her engine rumbling and everything. Said, okay, well, let's go in. And I don't know. I mean, maybe I personally haven't lived in student housing. My daughter has in McGill, and it was okay. It was a little bit disgusting, but it was okay. But oh my God, like these student housings, if it's predominantly guys, it was disgusting. I don't know how their parents can pay for that. And I don't know how these guys can not only live, but how can you study and be productive in that environment? Like, I don't know. These are going to be our future lawyers and doctors. And I don't know. It was horrible. Like literally, they had blacked out the windows with styrofoam. There was not only beer, cans and mugs and stuff or whatever all over the place, and it was disgusting. But literally their kitchen sink and their bathroom sinks were completely plugged up. Like, I don't know how they ever cleaned. I don't get it.
Spooky.
Yeah. So yes. That was like, how you're like trying not to gag, right? That was really spooky for me.
And so you didn't buy that place, and that might have been part of the reason, right? Like, I know there was zoning issues and a few other things, but it's like, sometimes you go in and it's stinky and spooky and gross and you think, oh, this smells like opportunity, and then there's other times when you're like, nope, this is just too scary to even smell like opportunity.
Too much for sure.
Yeah, that was great that you and Robin met. I think that's one of the fun things about having us, nationally, and being able to, like, I think while Robin was there, Sherry and her met because Sherry was out for a conference. Yes. And so it was really cool. So yeah, we definitely miss Robin. She's a morning radio DJ, so she's up at like, I don't know, 3:30 or 4:30 in the morning. So she goes to bed at like 7 p.m. So she's coming back to Victoria. So I'm considering zipping over for a couple days because she's having a party for all of us to catch up with her. So we'll see. But yeah, it's one of the fun things about when we move across the country, there's always people to hang out with. So super fun, awesome. Good story, Elisa.
Who else has a horror story? I'm sure you guys have lots.
I think Angie you were telling us about your Calgary reno. I think
Oh,
that sounds like a,
yeah, that was rough. That was real rough. Yeah, I had long-term tenants in the house, and I kind of during COVID, I had, stopped doing my Airbnb, but everything was all nicely staged and pretty and everything. And anyway, so when I was looking to move back to BC, I was like, I think just locked and loaded. That's what I really want. And if I can rent it out, fully furnished, looking really good, then maybe I get a few more bucks each month. And then I save the storage expense. So that's a double win. And then I thought, it works in the tenant's favor because, if people are new, say they just moved in into the city, they don't have to buy a whole bunch of furniture for, 20, 30 grand, whatever that is. And it was fine when we started. I did, because I think I have, you know, like pretty good spideys. And I was like, I don't know if these people are going to be all right, but I think we can get by and think I'll manage them. For the first year, it was kind of fine. And then, it was just, yeah, I went to visit, like right before I had to evict them. But I went to do just a viewing, and they had extra cats, which were, not allowed in the contract. And they had like this extra cat had, and it was a black cat also, fun fact, but it had destroyed a lot of my furniture, like in like one of the couches in the downstairs. It was a really beautiful, one of those, like, I guess, French provincial couches, had like ripped apart the front of it, and you could see all like the stuffing and the bones, like the wood within the couch. And, there was like cat something. I thought it was poop. And I was like pointing it. I was like, you can't have this. And the tenant was just like, oh, it's fine. And I'm like, you can't tell me it's not fine. And it, like, there were just so many things. And there was like this smell in the downstairs. And so I was like, because I had been told, like, I got all the promises, right? Like the cats are going to be no trouble at all. They're hypoallergenic. They don't shed. They're, litter trained. And I had no idea how bad like cat urine can be for a house. Because because they stopped paying their rent, and I learned a little bit about management skills, like, for sure, because it took me way too long to evict them. I think they hadn't paid. The last one they hadn't paid was like for like a month and a half or something. And I could have, it's Alberta, I could have evicted them really early. So anyways, once they were like out, and they wanted their damage deposit back, and they were willing to fight. And so I learned about sticking to my guns. I had a friend in her SUV outside, just kind of like hiding in her car because she's good with confrontation. Her parents were both lawyers. So she's like, oh, I know what's fair. So she's like sitting in the vehicle, just like listening as like, they're just being so unreasonable, demanding their damage deposit back. And I'm trying to explain to them like the extreme nature of the damage that they did to the house. And I was like, and I thought about suing them even, but in the end I was like, I realized, because when there was, forget what it's called, but this guy had come by and was looking for the wife, and what is it, a bailiff? Yeah. And so then he had said he had already seized the guy's vehicle, and he was looking for the woman to seize her vehicle. So, and I chatted with him. I was like, hey, since you're here, I have some questions. And he had been like, you're not going to get any money out of these folks. Like, there is no money to be had. So you could go through all this stuff. But anyways, I ordered, or I hired a company that had this like big 1 ton, and they filled up 2/3 of it with damaged, broken, destroyed furniture that I had paid for and collected and staged. Like, that's all time and money. And then I had to, yeah, because like the smell was so bad. I tried to like use a carpet cleaner. And then I learned that that's a really, really bad idea, because the heat and the water both activate the smell. So then you couldn't be in there for more than like 2 minutes. And so I was just like, this is so overwhelming. And I'm like working full time trying to deal with all this stuff. And I'm flying back and forth from Vancouver. And my friend Stacy, like, God bless her, she like looks at me and she looks at the carpet and she's like, get me a screwdriver. And so we like ripped it out, and I was like, I think we're heroes. Like, I really think we've become superwomen, just like out of desperation. But it was so good for me to be able to like, and I had to hire like a restoration company. They ended up only doing a consult, and we just got really creative, and there were a lot of, it was a lot of work, but it was awesome to be like, hey, this was really scary. And I learned a lot. I'll never allow animals ever again. And I won't be so naive. I'll be like, oh yeah, I'm sure your cats are going to be really great. I just, I had a bad experience once. And so I learned a lot. And I think it was, just also really good for confidence to be like, hey, something can just be like, oh my Lanta, this is stuff that other people can do when it gets really scary. But then to kind of like be like, well, I have to do it or else. And, do 15-hour days and then fly back and forth. And, just to know like, hey, I can come out the other side, I can do it. And I got amazing renters in there. And, they've got kids that are in school and they want that stability for the kids. So I think I'm like locked and loaded for just like probably until the kids graduate. Yeah. So that's my scary story with a positive ending.
Lots of learning there, Angie.
Thanks.
Oh my goodness. I know I've been a rock star learning about how to do linens too. Give me any stain, I can get it out now.
Oh wow, that's good to know. Yeah, you'll have to do a short video lesson for us, because I think all the people who have Airbnbs and that's a good thing to know. But Angie, like, I remember talking to you when you were going through some of that, and it was you were just so determined, and you just said, I remember you saying, a few years ago I might not have been able to do this. Like, I might have just like thrown my hands up and gone like, I don't know what to do, and you just did it. Like you just did. You just got it done. And lots of lessons to learn, right? So how do you find better tenants? I mean, there's so many resources that we have now. We can do credit checks. You can hire someone to do a good tenant reference. I mean, we should actually probably do like a cross Canada resource update, because there's so many provincially that we could probably put into a list now, so that everybody can make sure that they're finding good tenants. So that's a good reminder that we can update that. I think the other thing too is not feeling like you have to do it alone. Right? Like there might have been somebody in Calgary who might have been able to come over and give you a hand for a few hours. So I think that's also the thing where, when we hit those, like, oh my God, you wouldn't believe what happened to my rental. I need someone to come over and help, and believe it or not, there's a lot of people who actually love doing that kind of stuff. I mean, when Joan did her mobile home in Campbell River, her friend Hillary literally flew in from, I think she was living in, I think the first time she might have been living in the US, but she was like, I want to come and demo. So she flew up and helped Joan demo her mobile home for the first 3 days. And they just like, we've got video of them swinging hammers and pulling out carpet, and So I think there's and you definitely learn some of the lessons, right? Yeah. And now you've got great tenants in there, and you've got it all turned around. And I think you said you're going to hold on to that place for a long time. That's going to be kind of your anchor. So good stuff.
Thanks, Liza. And one thing that, like, because I remember that conversation that we had, and you were really encouraging. And I remember you sharing like something that has really stuck with me and been something that I'm like, okay, this is actually really exciting. But you had said, once you really like face those fears, like, and you do that thing that's like so terrifying, then you start to speed up. And I was like, yeah, I want to speed up. I want to be in like a little race car. So I appreciated that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true, right? Because we look at things, and if we haven't faced them before, we come back, we'll figure that out later. We'll figure it out later. And then once you get through it once, when you have to do it again, the next time you're like, oh, I got through it, right? Because we avoid, and then the actual doing of it is not as bad. as we make it out to be, and then you just get your get shit done hat on and off you go. Lynn's got her get shit done construction hat on. So yeah, it's yeah, and I'm like that with my taxes. I'm just so yeah, that's next week. Cool, good story, Andy. That's actually a really good story.
Yeah, and you're stronger for it now. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah. Inspiring. Thank you. Lynn, you want to go next? Since you've got your hard hat all ready to go. You look like you've been through a number of those.
And I'm trying to think of ones that have lessons, right? And honestly, but when you say scary or terrifying, and I don't know that there is a lesson out of this, but what I think was the most scary, terrifying moment in our real estate journey was we sold our big home. We moved into, finally found a rental, and it was ridiculous what we had to do to find a rental for our family and a dog, and 3 cars and whatever, storage space for all of our stuff, because we were downsizing but needing to rent for a year in the middle. And the buyers that paid a stupid COVID price needed an extension, and then they needed another extension, and I was just panicked, because I mean, what do you do? And you're at that mercy. Anyway, it finally went through, but the terror was real, and it was probably 2 weeks of all-consuming. Is it going to close? Is it going to close? And then had we bought this place? I don't remember the order. I think we had, anyway, it was just, I don't know how there is some small percentage of deals that fall through, and oh my gosh, wouldn't that be awful? So that does anybody have a way around that? I don't know, but that was my sheer terror. So.
And I remember that one as well, because you were making a big decision, right, about giving up the big house and downsizing, and you want your rock star bus for when you can be lifestyle remote, and you want the smaller property on the lake and out of the city. And so that was you got such a great price, the COVID price at the top of the market. And then is it gonna go, so that is scary. I mean, I've definitely been in those situations, and I think we did have one where the guy that was going to buy the property in Campbell River, he had it under contract for, gosh, it must have been, I feel like it was almost 6 months, and he even had invested like $100,000 into architect drawings and planning, and then a new city engineer started at the city, made changes to what had already been approved, freaked him out, and he dropped the deal. So we had a deal that we thought for sure was going to close, and it didn't close. So we still have that property. So we'll probably put it up for sale again in the spring. But I think those are real. I think the lesson there is don't count your chickens before they've hatched, right? That's a really big, and renting the place, right? Renting is a good idea, because how many people go out and I did that with Crescent, right? We our soup properties are going to sell, so I'm going to go and buy my share at Crescent. And that has not worked out very well. That might be my scary story, but so it's maybe that's
and people do it all the time, right? You buy conditional on the sale of yours, and you just assume it's all going to work. And I don't think we had actually bought this place yet, because my God, I don't know how I would have been more terrified, but I'm sure I would have been that much more terrified.
Well, and remember during COVID, there were people who weren't putting any conditions on their sales.
Yeah, exactly.
on their purchases, right? So they were like, I know my place is going to sell, so I'm not even going to put a condition on it. It got crazy for a while there. So thankfully, we're back at a point now where at least we can have some subjects and conditions and some time, We're taking offers tomorrow, and it'll be closed in a week. Temperatures come down a little bit, so cool.
Thank God. Yeah.
Who's next?
Good story. And good learning too, Lynn. Yeah. Don't count your chickens before they hatch, and maybe have a backup plan too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jen, you want to go next?
Sure. I've got a couple quickies. So one, both to do with tenants. One is the tenant prior to the current tenants. I made the mistake of trusting young people that had never lived together before. Oops. Don't do that. Everyone, do not do that. They were like, yeah, it's really hard to find something. We're just moving in together. No one will rent to us. We'll pay you extra. And I'm like, no worries. Don't pay extra. I should have said yes. Pay me extra. Pay me a lot extra. So they apparently broke up like 2 to 3, I don't know if it was weeks or months into the tenancy. They'd signed on for a year. I said no pets whatsoever. They had 2 dogs that peed all over every single of the bedroom carpets, absolutely ruined those. I only had $1,000 deposit, so of course that was gone. She had moved out, so he was still there, and he took down the smoke detector, was smoking weed in the property like all the time. And like, you name it, it was disgusting. Like you say, like if it's a dude living there, it's not going to be the cleanest. The toilet was all plugged up, whatever. So about 6 months in, I always, in my lease, and there was 2 bed, 2 baths. So, at least he had 1 toilet to use, but didn't tell me, like, hey, and I was like, a plunger, buddy? Like, hello. But I guess when you're 19, 20, you don't know that a plunger works. Like, I don't understand. Anyways, so yeah, dogs, whatever. So I was like, okay, well, I'm coming in to do the inspection. Like every 6 months, I'll do an inspection. And so he was like, oh, okay, well, my family's here, so you can't come for this week or whatever, but next week it'll be fine. So I'm sure that he just like, put the dogs in his truck or gave them to a friend for that day and like cleaned everything as much as possible and like put rugs down over everything and like was freaking out kind of deal. So I went in, I checked absolutely everything because I am like meticulous about opening up every single drawer and shelf and looking behind the, everything. And that freaked him the F out. And then next week he's like, oh, hey, my mom has been in a car accident. I got to move out. Like, and plus it was like $2,100 for one 20-year-old dude. Like there's no way he could afford that, right? He was just, a journeyman construction person. So he moved out and I was, and he's like, I said, okay, but you are going to lose your damage deposit. You realize this? And he's like, yeah, no problem. See ya. And like, when I got there, I was like, oh my God. So I had to, strip out all the carpets like yourself, Angie. And it was disgusting. It was absolutely disgusting. The contractors that I brought in to redo the floors, I just put hardwood floors thereafter. They were like, oh my God, like this is disgusting. And the dogs had like clawed at, so clearly he was locking the dogs into the bedrooms. They had clawed at the walls and the doors and everything. And I was just like, dear God. Same with, yeah. Anyways, so don't rent to people that have never lived together. Don't rent to people that bring in pets without permission. Don't rent to people that are just immature. Anyways, so that's story number 1. Story number 2, current tenants. I'm pretty pissed about this. I rented to 2 gentlemen that had just moved here. They were super nice guys, finishing their masters in finance or whatever the heck they're doing here. And I was like, cool, okay, like you are adults. You're 30 plus, you're getting your master's degree. Like I trust you a little bit more than a 20-year-old. You're 2 dudes, you can afford it, you're both making money. And then one of them sneaks his wife and baby in and doesn't ask, doesn't whatever. And so of course I can't kick them out for like, but in the lease it says you need to ask, if you're bringing anyone else other than the people on the lease in, and, for more than, a week or whatever it is. And of course they don't say anything. So my contractor that I had gotten to fix, because everything is always breaking in there, like, oh God, another thing. They don't know how to fix anything. And so the contractor I got in there is like, hey, are you renting to like a baby and stuff? Because they have a lady and a baby like answered the door. And I was like, what? And he's like, well, they've been there since, December. So just FYI. So I go in there in January to do the inspection. And I am like, okay, there's obviously a wife and baby living here too, because I see a cradle and this, that, and the next thing. And I was like, oh, interesting. same thing. I go and dig. I'm opening up every single cupboard and drawer, and then the guy's like, "Oh, okay, yeah, no problem, no problem, no problem, no problem. Yeah, I'll fix that, no problem." Really trying to hurry me out. So I'm like, okay, I'll take my little sweet time. So I go into the bedroom, and all of a sudden his wife and baby walk out. I'm like, like not expecting them. And I'm like, oh, hi, nice to meet you. Who are you? And, same thing. I kind of play it off as like, oh, okay, just checking in here, checking the second bathroom, making sure that there's no leaks here. But then I forced a signature, like basically, okay, you're on the lease now too. Who are you? What's your phone number? I need to send this to the strata. Like, sweet mother of Jesus, like, don't play me for a fool. So people be sneaking everything all the time is what I've learned. So just never trust, even when they're solid on paper. It's like, no, they're not. So lesson learned there too. I guess my lessons are always like, just do your inspections. Always do your inspections, your 6 month and your year inspections, because people can't hide for long. Or forever, I should say.
That's a good one. Do you guys do inspections of your places?
Yeah.
I mean, I live in my place.
We do inspections often in the spring and fall, and so we're looking for some of the obvious things, like everybody takes the smoke detectors down, right? I don't know what it is with they'll take the battery out, or they'll rip it out of the wall, or we do inspections in I think pretty much everything. I don't think there's anything that we don't do, at least if not a biannual or a twice annual, then at least an annual. And I think it's absolutely mandatory. Like, if you've got a rental property and you've got tenants in there, especially with how tenants are nowadays, like, there's just the sense of entitlement. And obviously not all tenants are like that, but there is a lot of a sense of entitlement from a lot of tenants, and they don't understand that it's not their property. And it's like, it's terrifying, the amount of damage that people will do, and they just don't care. It's like, you've gone out and spent good money on carpeting and flooring and furniture, and they don't care. It's just ridiculous.
Because they know they don't have to pay for it.
Yeah, and there's very little recourse, right? But yeah, I mean, that's Jen going and doing those inspections, right? Like, and checking everything out, and that kind of sometimes wakes them up a little bit. Yeah.
Very good. Yeah, Jen, you need to do a video to teach us all the different cupboard doors or whatever that you check, and scare the living bejesus out of them. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm curious because Hong, you've got property across Canada also. And so how do you do your inspections?
So the ones that are in a portfolio, I've got joint venture partners, and so they take care of all that stuff. The properties that I manage myself, so mostly just the Toronto properties, I've got a general contractor lined up, and so whenever he goes to do renovations, he'll check on the unit. So every unit usually has some sort of renovation, like at least once a month anyways. So we don't do like a formal walkthrough on anything, because the laws are the rules are really strict in Toronto. So unless you can prove that it's beyond normal wear and tear, as a landlord, you're out of luck on getting the tenants to pay for it, right? So I've actually have never done a formal walkthrough of any of my units in 25 years in Toronto. And I'll visit Toronto at least once a year. And so during that time, I make a point of visiting all my tenants in person. And so I sort of get so then I go into their units and I see it anyways. So, but I don't do any recorded reports, and I don't get them to sign anything, right?
Yeah, different across all the different provinces, obviously, and always interesting to see, what you're allowed to do and what works and what you get pushed back on. And
in Toronto, because I do all of my own ads too for tenants, like, you can't even advertise no pets, right? So there's been so many ads that I run, and people will actually write hate mail back to me saying, you can't advertise that, or you can't do this, you can't do that. I'm like, okay, well, then just report me. Like, just, like then don't apply for the unit. Right. Yeah. So, but yeah. And you can only take 1 month's deposit, which is your last month's rent anyway. So you can't even ask for a deposit on pets or anything in Toronto.
Yeah, you can do a pet deposit here in BC.
Yeah.
And I can't remember if they've made it so that you can't disallow pets. I know they've been talking about it, but I'm not sure how, if that's been finalized. It'd be good to find that out. But yeah, there was a big push from people to allow pets, and then there was a big push to say, look, if I'm going to be forced to allow pets, then I'm just not renting my place out. So do you want people or pets prioritized, right? It's kind of like the parking, right? The number of people who, say you still need to build 2 parking spots for every unit. And it's like, are we housing people or cars? Like, what's our priority here? A lot of young people don't even drive anymore. So why do they need 2 parking spots? Exactly. Have you got a horror story, Hong? You must
I have
one.
So many. Oh my God. So as we were talking, I'm writing them down. So I actually have like a ton, but I'll share 2 if there's time. So the first one is a 4-plex that I owned in Ontario, and I bought it sight unseen, and which is fine. Like I do that all the time. So on the day of closing, I get there, and it turned out that the kitchen had it was a 4-plex. And one of the kitchens had gone and had a fire. So that would have been enough grounds to say, hey, you know what, I'm not buying this unit, whatever. So I got them to give me a price reduction on it. And because there was a fire in that unit, which was great, the tenant that was a hoarder in that unit had to move out. So in the process of having the fire, they got rid of that worst tenant, which is great. But all the other units were really bad too, which I sort of knew about, which is why the building was sold at half price. Right. And I knew that. So I was prepared for the work that would go into it. So we took it over, we did the renos, and I got like a local property manager and the good contractor coming in, and we did all the work on it, got the security system, all of that sorted out. Got it tenanted with students from India. So we worked through all that. Well, within that year, we had, I think, 12 students from India come in. So the cash flow was really good. And as the students were living in there, we were applying for rezoning so that we could make it a legal 5-plex. So then that would have bumped up the rent and everything. So we got approval for that. And so after that happened, though, we started having rat issues. And I didn't know this, but the city was overrun by rats. And the government, or whoever the city council was like, well, the rats are in the poor area, so we're not going to focus on that. So it was not a priority for them to get rid of the rats. So the rats got into the 4-plex, which is a 5-plex, started eating through all of the new wiring that we put in, ate through some of the structural beams that we had fixed, ate through our new furnace that we put in. So I was actually traveling in China at this point with my son, and we were supposed to be in China for 5 years. Well, I was getting calls from my contractor saying, Hong, we need $5,000 this month to fix the repairs that we did last month. This happened for 6 months straight. We couldn't, like, I was paying $2,000 a month for rat control, and they still couldn't catch it. I got photos of these rats that were the size of my head. It was insane, right? I was getting calls from the tenant in China at midnight saying, we have no power to our fridge because the rats ate the wiring. All of our groceries have gone bad. And these were students from India that had no money, right? And so I'd be like, okay, well, I'll send you some extra money to cover your grocery bill, right? And then I would have to go and like get the wiring fixed for the fridge. So after about a year of that, all of the renovations were done twice. And so I ended up actually having to sell the building because I couldn't manage it from China anymore. Right. So that was, yeah, that I would say was the worst horror story ever. Yeah. And then on top of that, the real estate agent that I got to help me sell it, he knew what a tough situation I was in, and he goes, okay, I'll help you sell it, but I don't want the standard 2.5%. I want 40,000 no matter what. So, which worked out to be like a good 10% on the purchase, right? But he sold it within 2 weeks. So I was like, okay, if you can sell it, you can have that commission.
What a story, Hong. Oh my God.
Yeah. But
and I know in Toronto, in downtown core, there's a huge rat problem.
Yeah. So this was one of the 2 buildings that I've ever sold in the 25 years, right? So I'm a firm believer in the buy and hold forever, refinance, rebuild, like whatever it takes to hold, right? So this would have been a great property to hold on if I could just figure out how to get rid of the rats. Okay. So
that's horrible. Yeah. I know that even in the rooming house that we were in before this house, there were huge like raccoon problems and squirrels got into the attic and stuff. So yeah, it could be a huge problem.
Yeah. So the big learning from that is really just having the right contractors, right? Because, you know, looking back on it now, it really was because I didn't have the right contractor there to take care of it, right? Like 6 months in and we still couldn't get the rats out. Like, you know, that, yeah. So.
And Hong, would they have been there? I mean, they probably were there when you bought the building. So maybe an inspector might have noticed some issues with a good inspection, right?
No, I did have an inspector go there. So even though I purchased it sight unseen, I did have an inspector go through it. I saw the reports, right? Like I saw the interior photos. So I just didn't walk through it before the day of closing, right? But
you would have thought an inspector would have noticed some rat issues because they do leave, you know, lots of trails, right?
Yeah. No, there wasn't any rats. No, because when I went there on the day of closing to actually take it over, there was no indication of rats. There wasn't any like poops or anything like that. Like the tenants, like all the tenants that were there didn't mention anything about rats. Nothing.
So it happened after.
Yeah. It happened after. Yeah.
Crazy. And there was actually, oddly enough, just yesterday, they were talking about the annual rat report from Canada, and Vancouver and Toronto, they're saying are overrun with rats. So yeah, it's definitely a problem. Lynn, did you say you heard that too? The news release yesterday? I think it was yesterday, hey?
Yeah, and I didn't click on it yet, but there's a map with like with all the hot spots.
Yeah.
It doesn't look good.
Yeah. Brutal.
Hopefully not in Sudbury, right?
Crazy. Well, it's amazing. We've shared stories, and we're almost at time. So I'll just share mine really quickly, because I mean it's a good thing to talk about, actually, these real estate horror stories, because I think, you know, one of the things that we talk about a lot is the real estate romance and the HGTV romance, and it all looks so nice and pretty, you know, and the reality isn't necessarily that pretty. But again, I think when you've got a good team and you've got good contractors and you've got good realtors and you've got good inspectors, you know, you've got people to lean on, and so you can get through the things that become really challenging. So I guess I mean, again, it would be really hard for me to just pick one story, but we focus lots on the ugly things. So I mean, what I might talk about is my horror story with Crescent, just quickly, in terms of the bureaucracy and the changes of policy and how that's impacted that particular project so much. So I think, you know, we all know we got a group of friends together and we bought an 8-unit apartment building right across the street from the beach in Victoria. And the intention 100% was to move in and have that as our co-housing building, and, you know, live in peace and harmony and love with my, you know, hippy dippy lovey ways. and let's just say it didn't work out. And so the first thing that went wrong was the residential tenancy board. We had our lawyer, who has been doing co-ownership, co-housing, co-ops in BC for about 40 years. Their team called the rental tenancy board. I called the rental tenancy board, and we had several conversations between all of the varying parties, and talked to different people at the rental tenancy board, and explained to them, we're a group of friends, we're buying the building, We are, we've set it up in a particular corporate structure because that's what we understand we're supposed to do. And our lawyer has talked to your office, and I'm just phoning again because we don't want to remove subjects unless we know that we'll be able to move in. And I was assured, I mean, we think we counted at least 6 times when we had assurances from the RTB. And they were, I mean, they were not only assuring us, but they were like, oh, absolutely, right? Of course you'll be able to move in. You know, you've got your paperwork right, and you'll be able to write the eviction notices for your tenants. And you know, we're pretty well connected in Victoria. We've got friends on the board at the Greater Victoria Housing Society. We all know people who own houses and apartments, and people, we always have people who have a rental, and we knew we were going to be able to find these people places to live if they wanted our help. It was not going to be a problem. And so we, you know, we took subjects off, and I moved in, and then Steve and Kathy moved in, and then Kyla moved in. And when it was time for Joan to move in, basically the remaining tenants got together and they went to Together Against Poverty, and they issued basically a letter that was like, we're not going anywhere. And so we actually went to a hearing with the Residential Tenancy Board, who provides residential tenants advocacy and legal advice for free, but our bill was about $40,000, and we actually lost the hearing from one RTB arbitrator. One arbitrator made the decision on the future of our house. And you know, one of the things that we've been learning is, and in terms of a policy change, one arbitrator should not have the right to change your whole trajectory of your property, especially when the advisors from their office have told you and your lawyers that you're going to be able to move in a certain direction. So for me, for the new year, now that we've gotten through this election, that's one of my goals, is to, you know, kind of write the story to our new and existing politicians, to Ravi Killen at the BC Housing, the Minister of BC Housing, and just say, like, you have no idea how you jeopardized this entire project and have impacted all of these 6 people who thought they were going to be downsizing, building community, and now the financial stress that it's put on all of us has created its own horror story. So that's just, you know, I'll maybe just leave it at that. But basically, that almost like was the beginning of a domino effect where policies changed, something else changed, the Airbnb policies changed. I think most of you know Airbnb now in BC is it got reduced to 30 days, and then it's been further reduced down to 90 days in BC. But I had a lovely bylaw officer show up at my apartment, at my condo one day at Crescent, and issue $18,000 worth of Airbnb tickets. So, and it was literally just a mistake on the platform. I hadn't taken a booking for anyone for less than 30 days. I hadn't received an inquiry for anyone saying, hey, I see you rent your place out for less than 30 days. Can I book? It was a simple error that just didn't get, basically the calendar didn't get saved properly when I went in and made some adjustments. And the bylaw officer wrote me basically 2 tickets a day for 29 days and then delivered them as a stack of tickets, and they added up to $18,000. He had my phone number. He could have called me on the first day and said, hey, Liza, you're offside on your Airbnb, but he intentionally chose to do that. And so the way that some of the municipalities treat their own citizens is basically a horror story. That's my one story. You know, I mean, with Crescent, we've got so many things that we can tell. But I think, you know, the government policies, the bureaucracy, the no accountability when huge changes are made, no recourse when you've bought something that you think is an investment property and is supposed to be grandfathered in, and the government just changes the policy overnight. So that's I think that's my horror story. So we're not done with it yet. There'll be a whole new episode of Crazy on Crescent in the springtime, and we'll see what updates come along from that. But yeah, but this has been fun.
I'm curious to
Real
ask
estate
you,
horror
Liza,
stories.
I'm curious to ask you, so on the Crescent one, did you get it in writing from the tenant board that you guys could take over the units?
You know, that was the I think that was the thing that we trusted. You know, we trusted from 3 phone calls, and we trusted from our lawyer. And the interesting thing too that actually happened, Hong, which was kind of crazy, our lawyer phoned, and I believe they followed up with an email, and then our lawyer's office got hacked. Like, they were literally like the recipient of some, like, you know, we kind of joke and they say about they were like hacked by Russians. They literally were hacked by Russians who hit a whole bunch of real estate lawyers in Vancouver, and all of their data was like gone. So they had to rebuild everything. And so my little email from the RTB to them and back and forth was just one of those things that never got picked up again.
So they must have gotten some response back to confirm that you guys could do it, and it didn't get forwarded to you guys saying, hey, this is the correspondence from those
Exactly.
from the board.
Yeah.
So then all of that disappeared. So then when you guys tried to get those other 2 or 4 tenants out, there was nothing in writing, so the board could just say, well, we didn't tell you that.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so we got an email from our lawyer saying, hey, I've talked to the RTB, and we have it even on Zoom. Right? Like, we had our lawyer on our Zoom meetings when we were going through the process, walking us through, yeah, I've had a chat with RTB, you know, we talked to them about the structure, everything looks good, and nothing. Yeah.
Because that doesn't hold, right? Because it's their word against. Okay.
Exactly. And so the idea that you can have people at a residential tenancy board giving buyers advice that they are making, you know, multi-million-dollar decisions based on the advice that you're being given, and then one arbitrator can overturn that advice in one 45-minute phone call is unbelievable. And that's how it works. So I think the RTB and many of these tenancy boards across Canada, they need a complete overhaul. So when I'm feeling brave enough, you know, my story might be one of several that's told to use as a case study about how bad it can be, because, you know, technically that's put 6 families in financial concern, because we've got people who will never be able to move into the property. They can't downsize out of their homes into the property that they intended to, and now they're stuck with an investment that wasn't meant to be an investment. It was meant to be their home. So it's brutal.
And you can't file a complaint against that arbitrator, ask for a second opinion. Like, this is ridiculous that the tenants can tell you, no thanks, I'm not moving out.
We can take it to the Supreme Court, right? And taking it to the Supreme Court just means more time, more money. And so, you know, our decision that we've decided to do is we're just going to develop the property, right? I mean, it's an old 1949 building, and it's now, the one thing that kind of works in our favor is with the province changing the legislation to be allowing 6 plexes and 8 plexes. It's a double lot. So it's 15,000 square feet. It's on a corner. And I've already been talking to the city. I've been talking to developers. We've been talking to new investors who would now be coming in as investors in a new building rather than as people who are planning on living there. And I mean, we could probably build at least a 12-story condo building there. Or sorry, not 12-story, 12-unit condo building there.
Well, that's a silver lining. That's going to be
a silver lining, exactly. So it's like, okay, tenants, you don't want to leave? Fine. We'll tear the building down.
Wow, the audacity. But it's happening so much in BC. The BC, I don't know if it's the NDP laws or what the laws are, but it's basically like tenants have more power than landlords do. And so I can't say that, but a lot of landlords that I know are saying, I've divested from British Columbia completely. I'm going to elsewhere. I've sold 2 condos. Like, I'm just like, nope. So I just have 1 left. And right now I'm not happy with my tenants. So
It's the same as in Ontario.
It's very similar in Ontario, right, Lynn? The favoring of tenants is very similar in Ontario. Alberta apparently is, you know, pretty much the best province in Canada. But a lot of people are now looking at, you know, the US, not the West Coast, right? Not the left coast, because Washington, Oregon, California are the same or worse. But a lot of people are looking at the US, and of course, Mexico, people are looking, but people are moving out of BC, and people who have places that they would rent are now choosing not to rent because they said, look, if I can't, I have an example of a colleague, the tenant set her kitchen on fire, and it took her 6 months to get rid of this guy, and he wasn't paying rent, and he'd set her kitchen counter on fire, and she couldn't get rid of him. Like, it's just, if somebody sets your house on fire, they should be out the next day. That's it, right? That is it. You're out. Get your stuff and go. And if you don't get it yourself, we'll have the sheriff come and get it for you. But yeah, set her kitchen on fire, and she still took 6 months to get him out.
Yeah. And now you have to give 4 months notice if you want to move in, and 3 months notice if you're selling. And even then they can contest. So right now realtors are being told, I just did my legal update, and realtors are being told, do not say vacant possession, because you can get sued by the buyer and by the seller, and the buyer's going to sue the seller, and the seller is going to sue you if the tenants choose not to move out for whatever reason. And I'm like, how is this even possible? Like, if you're a tenant, you don't own, you move when you're told. Like,
yeah, it's crazy. And that's why we become owners, right? Because we want to have control. We want 100%. To be able to have control over what we do. I mean, that's why I became an owner. I lived in a building that flooded, and the water was up to the basically the height of the bed in the bottom unit of the building. And the owner came by and said, oh, well, you guys can all sleep in your apartments tonight because the water's only up to the level of the bed. So you can still sleep on the bed. And I was like, okay, media, can you come down here and take a look at this? And then he put everybody in hotel rooms, but insane. So for me, that was it. I'm like, I'm never going to be a tenant again, because this is just, I do not want to sleep in a place where there's 2 feet of water, but I can paddle to my bed and sleep in my bed. That's crazy.
That's crazy.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. Amazing stories, you guys. We could totally make some sort of horror movie, and Jason comes out, and it's so horrible. Friday the 13th, all over.
My chainsaw.
That's perfect. And on that note, thank you everyone for sharing such amazing, horrible stories. Don't want to wish it on anyone. And that's really good learnings. Now we know what not to do, and now we know what to do. So I think we're all wiser. I know I am.
I'm going to take a picture, okay? So everybody smile again as I get my chainsaw going here.
Okay. Here, I'll put on my mask again. There we go. Oh, that doesn't look like anything, though. Just looks like I'm skiing.
All right.
All right, go for it.
Got it. Fun.
Perfect.
All right, thanks, ladies.
Cool. Thanks, everybody. And hopefully you all got the newsletter in your inbox. Happy Hour is the 13th of November across Canada. Vancouver, Victoria, and Toronto. And of course, Alexis is hosting November 7th, first time buyers, first time homeowner, and Hong is doing cash flow crunch on the 6th, I think we decided it was, Hong, 6th. Right?
Yeah, the 6th at
6 o'clock.
Yeah.
Or 6th of November. So we'll put that in the newsletter again next week. And ladies, we'll see you, probably some of you at Happy Hour. And Lynn and Elisa, thank you. Next month I'll probably be on the plane, so you won't have to listen to my annoying stories.
Always love your stories. Thank you so
Good
much,
to see everyone.
Good to see everybody.
Have a good night.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.